Hey, welcome back to another episode of Keep Standing. I'm your host, Dr. Timothy Sloan. Excited to have you sharing with us today, but listen, I need you to do me a big favor before we get started. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell others about this podcast. If it's helping you, let's make sure it's a benefit to others as well. Well, I'm grateful to be back once again with my good friend, Bishop Donte Hickman. He is an incredible leader, visionary. He's a native of Baltimore, Maryland, but he's also got a little Texan in him. He's a graduate of Wiley University. Now he's the esteemed pastor of the Southern Baptist Church in Baltimore, and really, basically a real faith-based community architect. I mean, you're leading the way in that. And we talked last time about a lot of your work, Dante, and how you're revitalizing community and really kind of giving a voice to the community as well. When we look at society today, and you know, we know that there's this challenge with polarized politics, and we're also dealing with challenges with mental health and community development, economic instability. When you think about that, and then some of the work that you've done and that you're probably doing, what's kind of one of those big major moves that we can make in the next 12 months, possibly, that may be really a game changer for us?
I think that the church has an opportunity to broaden its vision and to clarify its identity and through its context. What are the real and felt needs within the communities in which we serve? And then I think the church has to be understanding of what it can't do in and of itself, and find ways to broaden its collaboration and partnerships with the right expertise to mitigate against various circumstances within our community. Our church has been fortunate through our Community Development Corporation to do large-scale development, not just affordable housing, but in the kinds of mixed-use property developments that brings amenities and accessibility for families. In our community, we have to have early childhood Head Start education. We have to have employment training for the unemployed and the underemployed and, quite frankly, the unemployable. We have to have physical wellness and nutritional services for people and affordable health care. The church can't do those things in and of itself, but the church can facilitate the right expertise to have those things that make for sustainable communities and families to situate themselves around, even in retail. And so I think a bold step is clarifying vision, understanding your context, acquiring and gaining site control, developing partnerships with other institutions to make their services available under your rooftops, so that our communities can have a greater level of access.
If there are young leaders who are listening, and I know there aren't, who know, Dante Hickman, they know his great work in Baltimore, and they're saying, I want to do some of the work that Dr. Hickman is doing. What's kind of those kind of first steps that you're telling them to get there? You can't just copy the formula, but what are some of the things that you got to do to say, if this is what you feel called to, here's where you need to start?
Sure. It's just like identifying who you are. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and not shape yourself by the voices and the visions of people you see outside of you, but who are you? All of the things that you like and don't like. What are the quirks about you? What do you need to cover up? What do you need to fix about yourself to make yourself the best that you can be for yourself and to yourself and for others? I think the same is true. Jesus told us, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think a lot of younger preachers, a lot of younger people they love outside, but they don't love inside. I think the same is true with our communities. We don't look at our communities to see what they are and what they can be. I was talking to a pastor about community development, and I went around the area of his church, and I saw wide open areas of land and boarded up houses. And he's trying to move his church to the suburbs, in a more stable community where he thinks he can grow. And I said, you can build your church right in the community. He said, where? And I showed him land. He said, I never saw it. 1 block in front of him. Because a lot of us are driving from our house to the church and going inside. But we never look around and see what's there. I think that's where we find the Nehemiah vision. Seeing our context for what it is, seeing ourselves for who we are, and building from there.
What's causing us to miss that? I love that, that there's driving to the church and going in, and oftentimes we say as preachers, you're passing the church on your way to the church. But what is it that's causing us to block that? For you saw the vision immediately. You're like, here's your opportunity, but something is blocking us.
Cognitive dissonance. I think we're just not aware. And we're not intentionally aware of our surroundings and our spaces because we already have our minds made up based on what we've seen that we can't even see what's right in front of us. We go down to the Luke Church in Humble, Texas, and we see what Sloan's doing, and we see this big church and congregation, these LED walls, and we fixate on getting a wall, not knowing that the walls in the community are torn down. And so we're focused on visions of grandeur rather than visions of God for God's people.
Is it the sort of the concept that we're despising small beginnings and that we don't recognize, hey man, this didn't start here. To build that, we started here.
God, man, I just witnessed a younger pastor that I've sent forth. He tried to do everything in a year. I mean, build every ministry in a year because we want to get to the top. Nobody wants to be born in Bethlehem where there's no room in the inn. But Jesus showed us from the very beginning, hey, I'm going to come and start at the lowest point, and I'm going to demonstrate to you step by step how you can get there. And I think most of us are missing the joy of the journey and the growth points along the way. You miss so much because this ministry, I've discovered, is not just about building your church. It's about building who you are.
Yeah.
God is using your pastoral ministry to sharpen you personally. And the more we run from ourselves, the more we miss the mark of what the church can be and who we can be.
So let's keep diving. So again, I see Donte Hickman, I see Southern, and I see what you're doing at Southern. I see the headlines now. I see the CNN coverage now. But you talked earlier about it didn't start there. It started with some lockouts early. And that's an easy space to get discouraged for a young leader when things don't go well early on. What was the turning point for you? What was it when you said, you know what, I can do this despite, I was a little cautious early on when I was seeing this, but now I get it. I can do this.
Man, I saw people that were very supportive in my second church, and when I went through conflict and confrontation, I saw people who loved me, appreciated me, respected me, and placed a great deal of value in my leadership and potential that I didn't see. And where could I go? What could I do? I decided to stand up and fight. I decided I can't run from what this is that God has called me to. And I don't know, I remember going to court with this church that I'm in, and I heard Bishop Jakes at Empowerment Temple where Jamal was pastoring, Jamal Bryan, and he said it starts with a little bit of rain. Everything you're about to go to, it starts with a little bit of rain. And the next day, I'm on my way to court, and it's drizzling outside. It's rain. I get into the courtroom. The judge's name is Brooke. It's water. And then the judge asks for a cup of water because she's thirsty. And the next thing I know, the judge said, I'm not putting this man out of his church on the week before Easter Sunday. He's done nothing wrong. And set me free to go back and preach. And the people with a standing ovation, I'm just 2 years into the ministry. And we're rocking and rolling. It was in that moment the Lord had placed it in my hands, this great trust. And I used an opportunity to teach where we were going.
Yeah. You speak about Bishop J, and I remember attending a Gideon conference, and he talked about, he said one thing that was really challenging for me. He says, a lot of people think that they want this until they realize it's hot under them lights. You want the lights, but you don't realize how hot these lights are. And that's, you've had to be under those lights for a minute, man, and dealing with that. How have you seen yourself evolve, change? Were there moments where you thought, man, this too heavy?
Oh, absolutely. This is the heaviest lift of my life, and always being under scrutiny. And someone, you're under a microscope of your entire life and what you're doing, and you're worried about perceptions. You have to quickly know your own truth and live by your own creed and understand that misperceptions, misunderstandings are a part of life. Yeah. They're part of faith and ministry, and you have to live boldly and do it how you feel it. I have a mentor at my church. He's our CPA. He's like a father in the ministry to me. And he always says, man, you got to lead and preach it like you feel it. And you have to grow through and scrape your knee and bump up against your own walls and get back up again. It's through that resiliency that you really become.
Yeah. Well, you again, leaning into this whole piece of, your work has become pretty, broad spanning. It's, you quite a public figure. One of the other sides I share with you that we don't often talk about as leaders, we sit in these chairs, but there's a weight that you carry personally, intimately, that can lead you to some real places of fatigue, emotional fatigue. And, we've talked a lot here on this podcast about caring for yourself. Man, how do you deal with that? Because, again, here's the truth. We don't talk a lot about, because some of our relationships are so superficial, we don't talk about, man, the impact this has on us. You carry this stuff home. But how do you face it? How do you care for yourself?
Sure. Stress is a silent assassin in our lives, and sometimes we don't know it until various symptoms show up. I did clinical pastoral education at Grady Memorial Hospital in the summer of the Olympics, 1996, in Atlanta, for seminary, for graduate school, and I learned so much about the mental health space and how it shaped me. And I remember leaving that experience asking my supervisor, do I need mental health therapy? He said, oh, absolutely. And I said, I'm thinking I'll get a white woman. I'm looking, and he said, no, you need a black man. I said, oh, no, I can't do that. Why? I didn't trust black men. I didn't trust men. I didn't trust black men because of my experience with my stepfather and the burning of my feet. But then I've discovered that you need someone to talk this out with and to share these things and to open your understanding. And now it's ironic that I have a small group of brothers who share in roundtable discussions and really therapize one another. I think another space that helps me, man, quite frankly, and I hate to say it, is going to the gym. and working out, man, the gym saved my life. It didn't just cause me to lose weight and feel better about myself and be able to button suits that I couldn't button for years, but all of the stuff that could clog me on a daily basis with development and with church work and people, having that space of doing cardio cleared out the webs in my mind. It got so bad at one point when we were having board meetings, the chairperson of our board would ask the secretary, did he go to the gym today? Because if he didn't go to the gym, it's going to be hell.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, I think he went to the gym. Thank God. Because it really freed me up. And I think lastly, for me, intentional prayer and processing. I'll be the first to say as a preacher, I wasn't praying as much as I was telling others to pray or when it was time for me to preach. But now I can't miss a day. If I'm driving, taking that long drive to the gym, I'm opening up, having a conversation with God, which is also a conversation with myself, and really unpacking. And the deeper I get in these prayers, the deeper I go into those spaces and places of honesty with myself and where I am and what's my Peter principle. Where am I about to fall apart? And I feel it. And then I have to take, intentional steps to back away from things, from obligations. Sometimes you have to say no.
That's the real truth. We don't always tell that, but that's the real truth of, sometimes we have to really check ourselves that our spiritual formation may not be as well as, we're trying to get you to be at, telling you do this, but our spiritual formation may have some slack to it. Are you extrovert or introvert?
I'm surprisingly introverted. The last time I checked, I'm an INFP.
Not surprising at all to me, but people who know you probably assume extrovert because you are the life of the party. Right. When you're with everybody, you're the life of the party. But when it's for a lot of us, but when those lights go out and we go back behind that curtain,
absolutely.
I need to recharge. My wife and I were having this conversation, not long ago about extroverts and introverts. And I call myself a practicing extrovert, because I'm really introverted, but I do good in extroverted situations, but I need to recharge. Do you find the same for yourself?
Absolutely. And people always have an expectation of you to always be the life and always be on.
Which is so draining.
It's very draining. And, I'm an introvert because I process internally everything. I want to perfect everything. I'm writing my sermons out, and then I want to preach it word for word. And Craig Oliver said to me, Dante, you know what your problem is? He said, I'm a dimmer and you're a switch. I said, what do you mean? He said, if you go into a space, you are either on or off. If you like them, you're on and you're up. If you don't, you just off. He said, you got to insert a dimmer. Turn up and turn down. I said, Craig, I think that's so disingenuous. I've not learned, how to balance those introverted and extroverted moments with myself, but I try to stay in tune with what I'm feeling, and I'm going to be who I am and try to manage my emotional intelligence.
Thank you, Pastor Oliver. I'm gonna see if I can do that dim piece. Yeah, I need to put a dimmer in. Yeah. Because when you step into those rooms, you feel like I got to perform. There's this level of expectation on you, and so you feel like I've always got to set the temperature in the room.
You all feel like you always have to set the temperature, but can you moderate? Can you be true to yourself? How do you balance it? How do you tell yourself what you're going to do and what you're not going to do so that you don't, damage yourself?
Yeah. Because it just takes so much from you.
We are so performance-based in everything that we do, and we look for impact. I think, quite frankly, the pandemic helped me with that. For 2 or 3 years, you're preaching the pews, and there's nobody responding. It's just you in the room. And one of my members said, I like your sermons better during the pandemic. I said, why? She said, you get through the whole thing. You're not in a rush. You're not trying to make us shout. You're giving us the full message. But when people are in the room, they have a tendency to impact who you are and how you want them to respond and react, and you're checking the pulse. But I think we should be more internally engaged about purpose and meaningfulness and intentionality.
And I think the older we get and the more clear you become about your purpose, and the more you understand who you are, it really kind of helps you to not always feel like I gotta do a backflip for you, or I gotta do this. I can flow a little bit easier, and I'm not always pushed by something somebody says. You kind of flow with it.
Yeah, I'm not being graded. I'm the grader now. I've put in my work. I've proven myself. May the works I've done speak for me. I'm not at all trying to take my foot off the gas, and I'm still wanting to improve upon myself. And I think that is improving upon yourself when you seek less to be impressive and more to be impactful. As Dr. C. McLean once said when he came to preach for me, I said, Doc, kill him. Do your thing, Doc. He said, seek first to be effective. I said, oh my God. He rebuked me.
Wow.
Seek first to be effective. It's not about killing them. It's not about emotional. Let's be effective.
Yeah. We were talking about this earlier. Preachers have hooks. And I don't know if people know this, but when you hear Donte Hickman, it's the shut it down, Dante, that you really want to get to. And so you got to that as the Luke, and we love it. But here's the thing. The reason it works is because of the work that happened before that. The way that you exegete, the way that you lead us and guide us and help us to see, to literally walk the streets of the text.
I'm shutting it down before
and you've already shut it down. So when you say that, it has the impact because of the work that's taking place. Now here's the issue. We're dealing with a generation who doesn't necessarily want to do that work. They want to get to the shut it down.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? It's this viral moment kind of movement,
I hate it for them, man. And I think we've all been there. We've heard the closings and the great crescendos of praise at the end, and we have asserted that as the real moment of proving whether this was it or not, whether this was good or not, rather than the thought, the thinking, the transformation. Where does this lead people to go and to be and to do? And my sons, told me all the time, why are you doing all that hooping and hollering and all that circusy stuff? You had a good message, and then you want to go running around and jumping and hollering. You making too much noise. And so generations are coming along where they want a practical message that makes sense, something clear. Dr. Manuel Scott used to tell us that the preacher who is the greatest is the one that can be effective in any context. And whether you're in a Presbyterian room preaching or Pentecostal room preaching, because it's not the emotional, it's not the voice cadence, it's the meaning and the meat of the message that makes the most sense. And I think for me, I'll say lastly, preaching has to make sense to me. It has to mean something to me in order for me to preach it to you. I preach it the way I feel it because I really feel it. And I think a lot of preachers are preaching as an act.
Yeah.
They're acting, but they are not, as Paul said, I don't want to preach salvation to you and I myself be a castaway.
Yeah. I think generations to come are going to study the Hickman model, and they're gonna want to see how does Dante Hickman, how did he accomplish what he did, man? It's a great model. So appreciate your great work, man.
Thank you, sir.
Got some stuff coming up. Tell us about that.
We have a book entitled "A Force to Be Reckoned With: The Key to Effective Faith-Based Community Development." It's going to help churches, faith-based leaders, even college professors and institutions with curriculums on this, of how the church, being the last stakeholder in the community, can really change the community through development.
Make sure you grab about 10 copies. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to drop a link. Make sure that you got it, but you're going to need to get this. Man, how can we find you on social media? Where can we?
I'm Donte Hickman on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I am, our church is www.southernbaptistchurch.org, and YouTube, The Southern Baptist Church.
Dante, thanks for all you do, man. Great work you're doing, and just for who you are. Baltimore's got a jewel, and they know it. Listen, thanks so much for being with us. Please make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and then come back and check us out again next episode. Until then, keep standing.